Guys, I don't know if you're like me, but I can't even remember what happened last month, much less what happened way back in January at the beginning of the year. AJ and I were talking about what makes a good year-end review and why on earth should we even do it? I contend this is the toughest question you can ask yourself as a business owner or entrepreneur. And the question is simple. Where are you headed? Welcome to the Get Business Savvy podcast. I'm George Black, and this is AJ Bishop.
When you brought this topic up, George, I was kind of questioning it because I'm like, don't you kind of just know if you're having a good year or a bad year? I mean, you've been experiencing it for the past year. Like, for example, at the end of my last year, we'd won our entrepreneurship competition towards the end of that. And so I knew it was a good year, but I was just feeling like this should be a pretty simple topic to talk about, shouldn't it?
Well, unfortunately, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners think that's the case. So let me give you an example, a football example. So just bear with me if you don't follow football, but we all know by this time of the year, if your team's not going to the championship, it's a bad year. If it's going to the championship, it's a good year and could be a great year. But if that's all the coaching staff looks at, well, we won 8 games and that was our goal, or we won 10 games and that was our goal. There's a lot more subtlety and nuance, and it gets into all the different positions. It gets into the coaching staff. It gets into the direction of the program. It gets into recruiting. It gets into the portal, the NIL, there's tons of moving pieces here. And these are $100 million organization sizes, and and certainly in the Power Five. And if you just say good or bad, how does that shape you for going into next year?
When you say it like that, and how you ended that was perfect, was when you're reviewing, is it more important than just to be like, oh, that went good or that went bad? Is it more important to be like, what position are we in now relative to the position that we were in at the beginning of the year? So for that football example of maybe, going into the year, we weren't that serious of a team and people had their doubts, but now come the end of the year, people think we're a legitimate team and we're on our way to competing towards a national championship for the next year. Are you kind of looking at it in terms of positioning, I guess, as would be the simplest way I can understand it?
So in a short answer, AJ, it's kind of sort of positioning, but not exactly like that. But you're definitely in the right direction. What I have observed in leading companies and guiding entrepreneurs is the most common thing people do is they set goals. And they set goals at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, they go, how did we do? Did we make our goals or not? And it's still the good or bad evaluation. So it's like, yep, we made our goals. Nope, we didn't. The other thing is, especially with sales-driven entrepreneurs and businesses, it's basically just a sales goal. And you're like, there's so much more. I mean, so think about, let me step back to the football game because this is important. In football, you have a goal line, you have field goals, and you evaluate the game based on how many goals you make. So, if you make a touchdown, you've crossed the goal line, you kick the field goal, the extra point, all those things are accomplishing goals. And so whoever's got the most points at the end of the game wins. But there's a lot more into the game, like interceptions, turnovers, penalties. There's a lot more to evaluate. You may have won the game, but it might have been a really ugly win. And if you don't correct those mistakes, you may not win the next game. Okay. So as a business person, if you're just looking at goals are the finish line. Okay.
Yeah.
Goals are the end zone. And if all you're doing is like, well, we scored plenty of points, we're doing good. Well, what does points look like? Well, we made our sales target. We got cash in the bank. That's good. Okay. Yeah. But did you just barely get across the line? What's the team? Did you lose all your sales team? And, but you made the goal at the beginning of the year, early in the year, and there's just thousands of other questions to evaluate.
And just like that football analogy, just because you won 8 or 10 games this year doesn't mean you're going to go win 8 or 10 games next year. So as a business owner, why would you assume that revenue is the end all be all and that's our score? And when we put up that score, the next year is just going to be as good. And that's all we need to focus on is what our score is.
The inverse is also true. If you miss your goal, it may be like, you've lost 8 games by less than 3 points. Well, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you just got to correct that's probably correcting some small things. And now you're winning. It's the same thing. If you just barely made your goal or barely missed your goal, then, the evaluation is completely different. In other words, you're super close to a winning season. If you just simply look at the goal and go, well, we didn't make our sales goal this year, you're missing the point.
Yeah. Just like you said, when you're losing a bunch of close games, there's probably a few little things that you need to fix. Same thing as if you barely make your sales goal, or even if you crush your sales goal, there's probably a few little things away from you not reaching that sales goal. So you should probably take a more comprehensive look at what went into that sales goal and achieving that revenue so that you can make it sustainable. So with that being said, do you even think goals are a good way to evaluate your year?
Probably not. The thing is it gets to direction. I contend this is the toughest question you can ask yourself as a business owner or entrepreneur. And I have surveyed many, and I find I have to really work with them to get them to an answer. And the question is simple. Where are you headed? Because if you don't know where you're headed, you're not going to get there.
Sounds pretty simple.
It's very simple, and it's amazingly difficult to answer because you go, well, where are you headed? And it's like, well, we're going to increase sales. And you're like, well, no, that's a metric. That's not a direction. And we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but believe you me, this is worth repeating over and over and over again, because we all look at the bank account. We look at the sales number. We look at the number of products sold, or whatever our metrics are. We're looking at those metrics, and it's like, but the underlying question, and this is how I would review a year. Did this year move me closer in the direction to where I want to go? Yes or no? And I say yes or no because I want to get that clear, and I want it simple. Yes, it moved me. No, it didn't. Then I ask the follow-up question. How, if it's yes, how did it move me? Or no, what happened?
That sounds like, yes, you do still want to have goals, but it almost sounds like goals are below that overarching question that you just asked. That goals are just something that goes into it. Because if you achieve your goals, ideally the answer to that question is yes, we are closer to where we're going. But goals are they just kind of a way to measure or to call out where you want to make that specific progress?
Yeah. Okay. That's good, because it's making me think. Let me give you an example, and I'm going to use us. Okay. So you want goals that you can control. Okay. And so I shared last week how my great struggle has been building an audience, and I cannot control how many people click and watch our podcast on YouTube. I can't control how many people the algorithm pushes it out to. I can't control any of that. So if I set a goal and I go, I want X number of subscribers by the end of 2023, I'm just guessing. And so if you go, well, George, you didn't hit your goal. And I go like, yeah, no, I didn't hit my goal. It's a bad year. Well, I can't control that. But here's what I can control. And you, with AJ's help, so it's AJ and I can control this. Did we do a podcast every week? Yes, we did. Except we don't do one at the end of the year. The very last week of the year, we take off. But, so it's like, yes, we put out a podcast out there. So we have a shot at people listening to our podcast every single week. That's a good goal. Now, that's a goal. It's not a direction. what's the direction? The direction is we want to build the audience. And so now I can start looking at my metrics. I can start looking and go, did our audience grow? Yes, our audience has grown this year. And thank you so much. And I would continue to ask you to share this podcast with all of your friends, particularly entrepreneurs, business owners, wannabes. Anybody in the business world is going to love this stuff because we dig into the real issues and we kind of cut through the BS. I don't know how else to say it. And this is what we're doing right now. And so I would say on our looking at evaluating our year end on our podcast, we've had a great year, but we don't have the subscribers I would like to have. So please subscribe. But I really just want views. I want to get this out to as many people as possible. But we're moving in that direction. Well, that's good. When did we start? Just a year ago. So in other words, AJ, what I'm saying is that it's both.
And I like how you're calling out that the goals need to be something that you can control, because it's very easy as an entrepreneur to just, well, my goal at the beginning of this was to be making a bunch of money, was to be making six figures for myself in 3 years, or to provide whatever income level you want for yourself. If I don't achieve that, it makes me feel like I'm a failure, because I framed it in a way of, I need $100,000 this year liquid to be able to cash out to myself as my salary for me to feel like a success. When in reality, I didn't look at the fact that, there was a market downturn, or, I had to, labor costs went up, supply costs went up, or, whatever external factor there could be in your particular business. When you tie your goals to something that is relying on a lot of other factors, as an entrepreneur, you risk discouraging yourself and making yourself feel more negative than you actually should when you don't exactly get as far as you were expecting in a year.
Right. So like if you're selling a product, for example, like what you were just referring to, you don't have control over whether people purchase it or not. What you do have control over is how many people did you put your product in front of, and how many leads did you get? And you're going like, it's January, February, and we're not getting the kind of leads we need. So did you pivot, or did you just keep doing the same thing that hadn't been really producing many leads?
Mm-hmm.
And
how did you market to those people that did see your product? And did you look at the results of that? Did you make any changes there? Like you said, you ultimately can't determine if they buy your product, but you determine how you present your product and where you present your product. And then you have to evaluate, were those the best places to get the most buys?
Exactly. And if you listen to last week's podcast, you'll hear me say, I've done at least 4 major pivots on social platforms to build audience. And I have built more audience, interactive, responding, getting the word out, all that in the last year than the previous 3 years combined. If you're going through your year knowing your direction, you're going to keep moving in that direction, and you're going to keep making changes and pivots and figuring stuff out and getting creative on how do I get the ball moving in that direction.
And George, I want to just bring this up as well, because I know like you said, this is a challenging concept for entrepreneurs. And I know the first time you asked me this question was, my answer, I'm going to paraphrase it, but was something like, we're going to be selling our device nationally in every physical therapy clinic, and then patients are going to use the device in the clinic and buy it for their personal use. So there will be our device everywhere in people's houses and people in the physical therapy clinics. Just everyone's going to buy a device. That was where that was my answer of where we were going. And you basically just responded and said, so where are you going? Because that just sounds like you're going 75 miles an hour in that future, but I don't know where you're headed to still. And that speed is kind of just the revenue goal. That's not where you're going. You're not going towards revenue. Revenue is just kind of how fast you're moving. It's not a destination.
That's a really good way to say it. Behind me is my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur. One of my goals is a goal, okay, is to sell audiobooks. Well, I can't sell any audiobooks because the audiobook is not out yet. We're inching closer. So the goal that's not the right goal. The right goal is I want to get the audiobook published. Now I have a chance to sell audiobooks. The direction is I want to put as many tools out there for entrepreneurs as I can. And I can decide those tools each year. I can say, okay, well, this year we want to get the audiobook out. Next year, it's going to be something else. I have a great idea, by the way. So it's like, so we start putting tools out there and I can control that.
So now that we've clarified that a little bit, I still want to break it down more because direction's a very big concept to grasp. And it's not something that you achieve in a year. No company, at least that I'm aware of, ever achieved its ultimate destination in 1 year. So why are we kind of judging destination and direction on an annual basis? Is there something smaller we can break it down to for this year in review?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And it's in the Next Level Navigator process, the process I've used at companies like Rackspace and elsewhere that have seen phenomenal growth by using it. And the first thing we do is we set overall direction. And that's the envisioning. But then we break it down to a next level. But you're right, that's still 3 to 5 years out. So if you think of it in terms of distance, say you're on the East Coast, your overall vision is one day to end up on the West Coast. Okay. And we're going to break up next levels into like, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to make it to Ohio. Okay. And then, and don't get confused with cars and jet planes and stuff. And so you just start setting like 3 to 5 years and you just, but it's always moving in a direction. But let's get down to the specifics for a year. I think, and we're going to talk more about this at the beginning of the year next month. I think having a theme for the year is one of the most significantly powerful things you can do for your company or for yourself, and both. And here's what I mean. It's like I have a theme that is going to sum up everything for the year. And I can measure myself by how well I moved that theme along this year. And I put strategies under those themes or under that theme, and I call those next step strategies. So those are strategies that'll be accomplished in the next 6 to 12 months.
Are those next step strategies? Are those more in line with what I was thinking or what we were thinking were goals at the beginning of this conversation?
No. Goals and strategies are two completely different things. In fact, in my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, I don't even use the word goal. I use the word marker instead, because I want it to be really clear that we have key markers that we're trying to finish lines we're trying to cross. Okay. Strategies are how we're going to get there.
Got it. So those next step strategies are your strategies to make your markers or to reach your goals.
Correct.
They're not your goals.
Correct.
Okay. So then what was your theme for this year?
Get out there. So, okay, this is, and actually this was, I was kicking around a whole lot of ideas and it's both a business goal and a personal goal, but it really, really worked. And it was a friend who kind of threw the idea out to me. He just kind of said it offhandedly. And I just went, that's it. Now, here's what's so beautiful about it is it's super easy to remember all year long. Yeah, you can put Post-its around or on the bathroom mirrors, whatever, people do all that. And that's fine on the refrigerator, under the magnet. But I need it inside me. I need it oozing out of everything I am every day. I need to go, did I get out there? Did I get out there? How you doing? Are you getting out there? And it started off really slow. And I think it was AJ, I think it was you who pointed out, well, you're getting out there with every podcast. I was like, oh, that counts. And then I got a dot card. There's no affiliate link. But that was an easy way to meet people and exchange information. And so I revamped my back end of the website. So we now we've internalized mailing lists and all sorts of stuff. And so we're ramping up. I'm getting out there a little bit more. Let me go back to your positioning statement at the beginning. When I look at where I started to where I am now, I am getting out there. I'm not seeing the results I was hoping for, but I can't control that. But if I don't get out there at all, nothing's going to happen. And I discovered in this get out there, I had internal stuff I had to work through. I'm not a get out there kind of person. I'm not the kind of person who can just strike up a conversation with a lamppost, for example. I know people who are, and I marvel at them. It's just not natural. And I discovered how unnatural that is. So I need to go. So I started figuring out ways that were natural for me, and I'm pursuing those.
So basically, when I'm reviewing my year, it's not just a matter of did I achieve this one goal or what was my revenue number? How many points did I score this year, per se? It's not just looking at that one thing. It's really a comprehensive look at what happened this year. What did we do? How did we pivot? How did we respond to our environment? And then what were the results of that? And then were the results in line with what we were hoping to achieve? If not, why? If so, what did we do to make that happen? And where does this position us moving forward into next year? And did this year get us closer to our ultimate destination?
Yeah, I think that's great because we started with, is it good or bad? Okay. Let's expand that to something even simpler of like what went well, make a list, what didn't go so well. And I'm not saying why, okay? Why didn't it go well? Because why is an accusatorial word we want to avoid. So let's be kind, let's be gentle in our review, but we want to get honest about how the year went. And you got to think back to month 1 to the current month. What's the whole point to all of this? It's exactly what you just said, AJ. It's going to create the platform for charting our strategies, our theme for next year. And we will give you guys some great tips and ideas and methodologies to do that. You could also get my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur. It makes a great Christmas gift. And it's got the whole navigator process in it. So you could start doing it. And finally, how do you feel about the year? And we don't want to, make any decisions based just on feelings alone. But I think it's important to just, how do I feel? And tune in to ourselves just a little bit and know, yeah, this is how I feel about this year.
And would you say to do that, how do I feel after you after you write out what went well and what didn't go so well? And then maybe take a little bit of time so you're not so emotionally charged, but your feelings are definitely a good thermostat for you as an entrepreneur, as where your business is.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying, AJ, and maybe better than I am, is we want you to look at facts. That's the rational part of it, where it's like, here's the things that went well, here are the things that didn't go so well, that sort of thing. And then go to, well, it's not exactly the irrational side, but some people would say that about feelings, but it's definitely at the other end of the spectrum. And so I'm going from facts to feelings, and I go, well, how do I feel about? And you're going to have multiple feelings throughout the year, or feelings about what went well and what didn't go so well. And I think that's a valid evaluation of the year. And I just think if you spend any time at all on this, it is going to really surprise you how good your year actually was. I think we have these mistakes. Most of us are operating on feelings. And we feel like, oh, it just wasn't a very good year, or feel like it's a great year. And we go like, it'll level it out. It'll level it out, and it will set the stage for a great new year. So for more conversations like this one, check out this video from last week. I was talking about it. I know you're going to love it. And until next time, may you live truly free.